Thank you. I think now we can proceed further. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to remain engaged with this project. It's a fascinating project, and often the question that comes to my mind even today is that while we talk about Chanakya, which is Kautilya, which is absolutely essential as an epitome of explaining statecraft to us, and then we come to the contemporary period and try and see what Chanakya said has done something, as if India did not exist after Chanakya and did not exist before the contemporary period started. It did, and I think in the morning session, Mr. Haksar and others, even Arvind Gupta, made a very valid point that Indian strategy has evolved. Every country's strategy evolves on the basis of fundamentals in which it is nursed and all that. And unless we study, and my interest in this subject goes back to when Robert Tenham came here and started lecturing us, most of us, that you have had no strategic culture, and some of my colleagues were quite moved in fact, even K. Subramaniam started looking with greater empathy on this projection that we had no strategic culture. I remember having twice, thrice questioned him and debated with him that unless you have explored what happened, your problem is that what you are saying is that we don't have the text available to us. But that's a very, very weak, very lame excuse of saying, and then on the basis of that concluding that you had no strategic culture. There have been epithets here and there have been poetries, there have been local histories. I mean, I can recall so many wars, so many forts which were being built, and as if it had nothing to do with the kind of strategic thinking which happened in India. This morning again Arvind raised a question, and I questioned him when we were out on tea. He said, we have been defensive and therefore we have never thought about it. Is it not a part of strategic culture to be defensive? And I said that forts, for instance, in various Central Asian, Central Indian provinces, including Rajasthan, is a description that we will defend ourselves, is a part of strategic culture. And Kautilya also says, the whole purpose of the state was to protect itself and promote itself, not necessarily to acquisition of others' territories or aggressive wars. And I think in your paper you say war becomes a basic core of looking at strategic culture. My humble submission would be no. War is one of the very important aspect of looking at the strategic culture, but there are various other aspects, and defense by itself is the way Rani Jhansi fought, Shivaji fought, various, they had their own, and unless we have gone into them, explored them, found out their strengths and vulnerabilities, we cannot come to this conclusion as to what India's strategic culture is. So my submission to Colonel Gautam was always that let us, this morning there was a reference, build a movement or start an exercise where we start exploring them and then find out where we stood or how would really this be reflected into this. So I think that is my interest in looking at it. Comparatively speaking, Kautilya's Arthashastra and various other documents have been studied very, there is a lot of excitement and enthusiasm to study them by now. How many have studied Cholas? How many have, what kind of knowledge we derive from, the southern Indian empires which moved upon. So unless we have, how many from Maratha wars, how many from Rajputana wars, and this is before the Mughal Empire, this is before the British Empire. And these two empires perhaps, this is where Arvind's point is valid, that these two empires perhaps injected or forced a sense of inferiority in us. And therefore we started looking more inward than, but the art of defense or the emphasis on defense predates that. And that has been a part of the strategic underrunning or underpinning the strategic thought and all that. So I think we are groping in darkness. We do not know. The whole purpose is that we ought to know, we ought to explore. And unless we have done that, let us not reach at the conclusion, either this conclusion that we had a great strategic culture, or this conclusion that we had no strategic culture. I think this is where the seminar and the effort is absolutely vital, important, and I thank you for engaging me with this. Now we have an excellent panel with us, and the theme of the panel is intelligence and strategic culture, engagement between the two, how intelligence reflects the strategic culture, or how strategic culture is enriched by the ways and means through which you carry on your intelligence.